I had just finished a double shift at the hospital. My body felt hollow, like it was running on autopilot. It was almost 3 a.m., and the city was quiet in that unsettling way it only gets after midnight. I didn't feel safe waiting outside, so the moment the ride arrived, I got in quickly and locked the door without thinking. The driver greeted me in a normal tone, polite enough. Nothing felt off at first. I gave him my address and rested my head against the window, closing my eyes for just a second. I remember telling myself I wouldn't fall asleep. I never trusted sleeping in a stranger's car, but exhaustion won. When I opened my eyes again, something was wrong. The car was stopped. The engine was still running. We were under an overpass, surrounded by concrete and shadows, with no other cars around. I checked my phone. No alerts. The ride was still active. I asked why we had stopped. He said he was waiting for something. I laughed nervously and asked what he meant. He didn't answer. He kept staring straight ahead, hands tight on the wheel. That's when I noticed the doors were locked. I tried to unlock mine quietly. It didn't work. I asked him to let me out. He turned his head slightly and said, almost casually, that he needed to make sure I was really alone. The words didn't fully register at first. I asked what he meant. He started asking questions. If someone was waiting for me at home. If anyone knew I was on my way. If anyone would notice if I didn't arrive. My mouth went dry. I lied and said my roommate was awake. He smiled, small and disappointed, and said that was a shame. Then he started driving again. Not toward my apartment. In the opposite direction. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I told him he was going the wrong way. He said the app glitches sometimes. I told him to follow the map. He ignored me. The city lights faded behind us, replaced by empty lots and long stretches of darkness. I tried to stay calm. I told him I was sharing my ride, that people knew where I was. He asked who. I couldn't answer fast enough. That's when he slowed down again and pulled over near a fence construction site. He said he didn't like liars. He said tired people always lie. I don't remember screaming, but I remember my throat burning. I remember my hands shaking as I pressed the emergency button on my phone. The moment I did, he cursed under his breath and slammed on the brakes. He unlocked the doors and shouted for me to get out. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs almost gave out. A passing car stopped and helped me call the police. When I checked the app later, the ride showed as canceled by the driver. No name, no photo, no history. Support told me it was probably a system error. I know what I heard. I know what he asked me, and since that night, I don't take rides from app drivers when I'm alone and exhausted. If I'm not fully awake, fully present, and in control, I don't get in. I learned that danger doesn't always announce itself. It waits for exhaustion. It waits for urgency. It waits for the exact moment you let your guard down. That night taught me something I will never forget. Sometimes it's not the route that changes. It's the intention of the person behind the wheel. And when that happens, realizing it in time can be the only difference between getting home and never coming back. It was finals week at college, the kind that decides whether your whole semester was worth it. That exam was everything. I stayed up studying until deep into the night, coffee cups everywhere, eyes burning, repeating the material over and over until it blurred together. At some point, I passed out. When I woke up, the silence in my room felt wrong. I grabbed my phone and my stomach dropped. My alarm never went off. I was late. Already late. Panic hit instantly. I got dressed shaking, nerves completely shot, heart racing, barely thinking straight. I ordered an Uber without even double-checking the details. When the car arrived, I jumped in fast, tossed my backpack on the seat, and told the driver to hurry as fast as he could, because I was about to miss an extremely important exam. He looked at me through the rearview mirror, didn't say a word. I figured my tone annoyed him, but I didn't care. All I could think about was the clock, the classroom door closing, the test starting without me. A few minutes later, something felt off. The streets looked unfamiliar. We weren't going the usual way. I assumed it was traffic or a shortcut. I asked if there was a lot of congestion ahead. No answer. The silence started to get under my skin. I was already on edge, already stressed, and my temper snapped. I asked if he was deaf and why he had changed the route. That's when he smiled in the mirror, slow, mocking. He said he took another way since I was in such a rush. My chest tightened. I told him to let me out, that I'd walk the rest of the way, that I was out of time. Instead, he accelerated. The car surged forward. My body went cold. He said calmly that he would only stop once he was satisfied with me, that he was taking me somewhere quieter, and that screaming would only make things worse. I looked outside and finally noticed it clearly. Empty streets. No people, no traffic. Houses spaced far apart. Everything deserted. My mind couldn't fully process what was happening. I was still stuck in panic mode, still thinking about the exam, not survival. And I said something I still can't forgive myself for. I told him to just do it quickly, to be fast, and then drop me off at the university because I couldn't miss the test. The moment the words left my mouth, he slammed on the brakes, turned his head and called me crazy, told me to get out of the car. The doors unlocked. I stumbled out, legs weak. The second I stepped onto the sidewalk, he sped off and disappeared. I stood there alone in a street I didn't recognize. My knees gave out. I collapsed onto the pavement and broke down completely, crying, shaking, unable to breathe. I called my dad. He came to get me. I stayed sitting on that street for a long time, frozen, sobbing, trying to understand how being late and overwhelmed almost cost me everything. I never cared about that exam again. What stayed with me was the silence inside that car and the smile in the rearview mirror. I was leaving a small party, nothing wild, just close friends. It was close to 2 a.m. and I was far too tired to drive. I ordered a ride from an app and waited outside the building. When the car arrived, something caught my attention immediately. The moment I opened the door, a strong smell of disinfectant filled the air. Not a light, clean scent, but something sharp and overpowering, like it had been used to erase something. Before I even sat down properly, I noticed the back windows. They were extremely dark. So dark I could barely make out who was inside. That alone should have made me walk away. Instead, I got in. The driver didn't say a single word. No greeting. Nothing. The car started moving, and the silence felt heavy. He kept adjusting the rearview mirror over and over. Not the way someone checks traffic, but the way someone checks a person. That's when I noticed something else. There was no navigation device on the dashboard. No mounted screen. He was following the route on a phone resting on his lap. And in his other hand, he held a second phone, typing rapidly, nonstop. My stomach tightened. A few seconds later, he sent a voice message. He was speaking in a language I didn't understand. Russian? Ukrainian? Maybe the tone was fast, low, intense. While he spoke, he glanced at the mirror again, said a few more words, almost like commentary. Like he was talking about me, studying me. My body reacted instantly. Cold sweat, racing heart. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and called a friend. I spoke fast, nervous, told him where I was, asked him to stay on the line and monitor the trip. In that moment, I truly feared for my life. I tried to sound calm and asked the driver to pull over. I said I had just seen a friend and needed to get out to talk to him. He replied without looking at me, saying he couldn't do that it was against the rules of the app. I insisted, told him I really needed to get out. He ignored me completely. Instead, he sped up. The turns became sharp, dangerous. The car felt out of control. That's when I threatened him. I said I was going to activate a safety system on the app. He laughed, said that didn't exist. Then I told him I was calling the police. Instantly, he slammed on the brakes, pulled over abruptly, and told me to get out. I didn't think. I opened the door and ran. I didn't look back. I crossed the street and almost got hit by another car. I only stopped when my legs felt like they were going to give out. The car was gone since that night. I learned something I will never ignore again. Sometimes danger doesn't shout. It watches. It analyzes. It waits for you to doubt your own instincts. And if there's one thing I learned in those few terrifying minutes, it's that fear that comes without explanation usually isn't there to hurt you. It's there to save you. I work as a ride-up driver mostly after midnight because the city changes when the clock passes 12. The streets grow quieter and people seem to lower their guard. That night started normally, light rain tapping against the windshield, the app showing my last ride before heading home. The pickup point was on a strangely empty residential street, with streetlights flickering like they were about to give up. I checked the address twice with that uncomfortable feeling of déjà vu, like I had been there before in some old nightmare I couldn't fully remember. When he got into the car, he didn't say hello or thank me. He just sat down slowly in the back seat, and in that moment, the air felt heavier. The smell wasn't alcohol or sweat. It was metallic, cold, like wet rust. I asked for the name to confirm the ride. He didn't answer out loud. He whispered it. My name. I let out a nervous, automatic laugh, but in the rearview mirror, I saw his eyes fixed on me, unblinking. Out of nowhere, the route changed. No warning. No request. The line on the map pulled toward a direction I knew too well and always avoided. I asked if he had changed the route. He confirmed with a short yes, almost impatient. I kept driving, trying to stay calm, telling myself it might just be a detour. A few minutes later, he said again that he needed to change the route. The price was already high, but that wasn't what bothered me. It was the direction. That area was one I avoided even during the day. I told him he couldn't keep changing the route like that if it went too far I'd lose money because I'd have to burn an entire trip just to get back to my zone. He took a deep breath, loud enough for me to hear, and said money wasn't a problem, that he'd pay double for me to return. I thanked him and said I didn't need that I wasn't going to the area he wanted. He laughed and asked almost playfully if I was scared. I told him I was going to cancel the ride. The silence came back, thick and heavy. No immediate response. Just his breathing behind me, slow, deep, filling the car. My hand started shaking on the steering wheel. Then I said I wasn't entering that area, that I'd drop him at the current point. I said it quickly, like I needed to hear myself say it out loud to be able to do it. He stayed quiet, breathing deeply, like someone who didn't like what they heard, but was still deciding what to do about it. When I pulled over and turned on the hazard lights, he finally spoke. He asked in a tone that was far too calm why I stopped. He said he was paying for the ride, that it was my duty, as a ride-app driver, to take him wherever he wanted to go. His voice was low, controlled, almost polite, but there was aggression hidden underneath, pressing. He adjusted himself in the seat, sinking into the upholstery, and said he wasn't getting out there because there were no rides in that area, that I should take him to the nearest gas station instead. That made me angry. A sharp, urgent anger mixed with fear. I decided to end it as fast as possible. I grabbed my other phone, calculated the route to the nearest gas station, and accelerated as hard as I could. I drove in silence, jaw clenched, while he started asking questions that were far too personal, asking if I lived alone, if anyone knew where I was, if I usually obeyed when someone insisted. I answered with short, cold cuts. He laughed. A low, contained laugh, like he was enjoying every second of it. When the gas station lights finally appeared, I felt a physical sense of relief. I pulled over and told him to get out. He laughed again, adjusted himself slowly, stretching in the seat before stepping out. Before closing the door, he leaned close to my ear and said, in a rough voice, that we'd be seeing each other again soon. Then he walked away calmly, like nothing had happened. I drove home shaking. I stayed away from driving as a ride-app driver for a long time after that night, because some rides don't end when the passenger gets out. Some of them stay with you, running inside your head long after the car is parked.